Tune into Nice Radio every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. for A View from the Outside, hosted by Brereton Horne. A View from the Outside takes a look at key issues affecting St Vincent and the Grenadines and gives a global perspective on how these issues are viewed. Host Brereton Horne will examine a variety of topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear A View from the Outside. Join Brereton Horne at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on Nice Radio for A View from the Outside.
This society needs a spectacle. It might help us to see some evil. This society needs a spectacle.
View from the Outside this week. This week being the 8th of February 2020. We look at privilege. 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 With the view being that it is imperative for Vincentians to do all that is necessary to hold accountable those who occupy positions of privilege in St Vincent and the Grenadines. The Longman Dictionary defines privilege as something that you are lucky to have the chance to do. From that definition, it is reasonable to conclude that to have the privilege to do something, one is lucky, meaning that one is fortunate or favored to be given that opportunity to do that thing. To have the privilege to do something, one is given a chance to do that thing, meaning that one is fortunate to be given that chance or that opportunity. It is also reasonable to conclude that in such circumstances, a privilege is not a right. Therefore, when, for example, politicians are elected to office, it is a privilege which they enjoy. They do not have a right to be elected. It is the electorate who give them the opportunity to enjoy that privilege. It is you, the electorate of St Vincent and the Grenadines, who give the elected politicians the privilege to serve. By the same token, when people are appointed to high offices and high positions to serve the country, it is a privilege which they are afforded to serve, not a right. This week's view is triggered by the contents of a letter uploaded on the 5th of February 2020 to the online publication Eyewitness News. The letter is captioned, "An Open Letter to the Commissioner of Police." This letter, addressed to the Commissioner of Police in St Vincent and the Grenadines, is written by Ronnie Daniel. Ronnie Daniel is a social activist and a PhD student at the University of the West Indies. The author of the letter, Ronnie Daniel, said that he wrote the letter to the Commissioner to seek genuine answers on behalf of the citizens of the country as to why the police has failed so miserably, miserably, the Cuban nurse Ariana Taylor Israel. Failure which is believed to have led to what Ronnie Daniel described as her, I quote, untimely and savage death, unquote. She, Mrs. Taylor, having been allegedly gunned down by her husband at her son's school while she was there to pick up their son from school. Ronnie Daniel's quest for answers ensued from his grave concern about the allegations leveled at the police that the nurse, Ariana Taylor Israel, had made 28 reports to the police regarding threats from her husband to kill her. Reports which reportedly did not result in swift or very little, if any, action from the police. In his letter to the Commissioner, Ronnie Daniel said, and I quote, "The truth is, my heart is broken and my spirit is disturbed, and yours should be too, as the shooting death of Mrs. Taylor Israel demonstrates a colossal failure on the part of our law enforcement agency that you have the privilege to lead. In that letter, Ronnie Daniel recognized the privilege which the Commissioner of Police has to lead the police in St Vincent and the Grenadines. It is with the whole idea of that kind of privilege in mind that we, on A View from the Outside, are encouraging all of our fellow Vincentians to do all that is necessary to hold accountable those who occupy positions of privilege on behalf of the people of St Vincent and the Grenadines. As such, we encourage you all not to turn a blind eye to the neglect which is seemingly spreading throughout the country. We encourage you to speak up and speak out when you are aware of the failures, colossal or otherwise, which you see in the country from time to time. Speak up and speak out about the government's seeming failure to adequately address the issue of domestic violence and abuse, in particular, domestic violence and abuse against women in the country. Let those in leadership know that it is a privilege which you have given them to serve the country, and that they must carry out effectively the responsibilities which come with that privilege. Let them know that it is only expedient and not prudent to try to displace that privilege to their political party. Let them know that you know that while their party is in government, their party is not the government. Hold accountable any government minister who has the privilege which you have given to him or her to hold that office, who does not know or believe that the issue of domestic violence is one which is for his or her government and or party is meant to tackle and address. We encourage you to hold accountable those who abuse their positions of power which you allow them to hold. We encourage you to remember always that they do not have a right to hold those positions. It is a privilege which you have given to them. Let the Prime Minister know that he does not have a right to be Prime Minister. Let him know that it is a privilege that you have given to him, you, the electorate of St Vincent and the Grenadines. Let him know that he must not abuse that privilege by insulting the people of St Vincent and the Grenadines, including those in the diaspora. Let him know that you can take away that privilege from him at any time. Let him know that with that privilege which you have given him, he and his government must treat all citizens of St Vincent and the Grenadines equally and with respect. Let him know that he and his government cannot continue to abuse their privilege. They need to obey the orders of the court and settle all of the debts which they have accrued against the citizens of the state. Let him know that to continue to leave Marcus de Freitas to languish by continuing to deny him compensation, which the court ordered for his property, which his government compulsorily acquired, is an abuse of that privilege. Let him know that the abuse of that privilege regarding the treatment of Otto Sam is still fresh in the minds of all Vincentians. Let him know that Vincentians know that it was an abuse of privilege when he reneged on the relevant clause in the collective agreement with the teachers' union and refused to re-employ Kenroy Johnson, Bash Thomas, and Elvis Daniel, reportedly all because they were candidates for the opposition party. Let him know that you know that it is an abuse of privilege with the way Bigger Biggs has been systematically lynched economically and his multi-million-dollar business left in complete ruins. And let him know also that you know that the privilege continues to be abused by the way Bigger Biggs continues to be treated for his own land at Rabacar. Let him know that you know that when healthcare is neglected in the country to a state where basic medication and supplies are in constant short supply, and where the state of the general hospital is in constant decline and disrepair, that it is an abuse of that privilege which the electorate and the people of St Vincent and the Grenadines have given to them, his government. Let him know that the privilege was abused when all the allegations of corruption leveled against the government, including the issue of misprocurement, which caused the Caribbean Development Bank to cancel a project and requested that all of the money spent on that project must be repaid and repaid with interest. Let him know that you know that when foreigners come to St Vincent and the Grenadines and they are given the privilege of Vincentian citizenship and a Vincentian passport, and they in turn break the laws of the country by defrauding it of its taxes, that is an abuse of that privilege. Let him know that you know that when some are given the privilege of having a Vincentian diplomatic passport, and they are then caught overseas trying to import quantities of cocaine into a foreign country, let him know that that is a flagrant abuse of that privilege. Let him know that you know that when a large quantity of cocaine, which is evidence in a criminal trial, is placed under the custody and control of the police, goes missing without a trace and without adequate explanation, that is an abuse of that privilege. Let him know that you know that the privilege was abused when farmers were systematically deprived of their independence with the government's neglect of finding them suitable markets for their produce. Let him know that the privilege was abused when a farmer was left without compensation after him having been given the legitimate expectation by the relevant authority to plant cannabis, and then had his entire field of cannabis cultivation destroyed by the police. Let him know that you know that the privilege was abused when the government withdrew millions of dollars of NIS contributions from employees and did not pay over those contributions to the NIS. Let him know that you know that that privilege was further abused when the government had to resort to borrowing money from the NIS to pay back the NIS what his government owed them. Let him know that you know that when the government abused the administration of the Petrocarib Fund, it was an abuse of that privilege. Let him know that the abuse of that privilege by all concerned, including the organs of the state and the agents and enablers of his party, remains fresh in the minds of all Vincentians and others the world over regarding the way Yogi Farrell was treated when she was allegedly, in the absence of any medical evidence before the court, sent to the mental institution after being charged for allegedly using abusive language to his daughter-in-law, the wife of his son, who is also a minister of government. And let him know that you know that the privilege which you have given them is being abused with the creation of a dynasty in the country, a dynasty which you, the electorate, are prepared and poised to reject. We encourage you also to hold all public servants who hold positions of privilege accountable for their actions. Hold everyone who has a responsibility to the people of St Vincent and the Grenadines accountable. This call to hold everyone in positions of privilege accountable is a call to everyone. No one is excluded. Ronnie Daniel has made the call to the Commissioner of Police, who occupies his position of privilege to provide answers. Let us all wait with him, with bated breath even, to see whether those answers will be provided. In the meantime, though, it appears that Ronnie Daniel's letter seems to have reverberated around the country and may well have been one of the forces which galvanized the candlelight vigil which was held on the streets of Kingstown a few days after its publication. Ronnie Daniel's call for answers and the subsequent candlelight vigil have shown that Vincentians can rise to the occasion and unite and take action when it is prudent and right to do so. We on A View from the Outside say that the time is now, and we reiterate the call to all Vincentians to do all that is necessary and right to hold accountable those who occupy positions of leadership, positions of privilege in St Vincent and the Grenadines. And as we do so, let us all bear in mind the words of a former Kenyan president, Mwai Kibaki, who, during his campaign to root out corruption in his own country, said, I quote, "Leadership is a privilege to better the lives of others. It is not an opportunity to satisfy personal greed," unquote. Vincentians, let us hold all of those in positions of leadership and privilege accountable for their actions. Randy and all of the listeners, until next week, this is Brereton Horne with A View from the Outside, with a reminder to send your feedback as usual to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. We also invite you to visit and like our Facebook page at A View from the Outside, and also to visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel at JMB Horne. Randy, you and all the listeners,